These are the measurements you'll be needing for this tutorial. You need your full top length, the back shoulder measurements, your bust circumference measurement, the waist circumference measurement, your hip circumference measurement, and your sleeve details. So I folded my fabric, and if you can see along the top edge of this fabric, I've ruled a straight line, and this is where all our vertical measurements will be taken from. Make sure that the top edge of your fabric is straight. I've made sure that mine is straight. I've ruled it as a straight line, and I'm going to cut this out. After making sure that the top edge of my fabric is straight, I'm going to take the full top length, which is 42 inches, and I'm going to add 4 inches to this measurement. 4 inches to the measurements. Your full top length measurement plus 4 inches. My client's full top measurement is 42 inches, and I added 4 inches. You can add at most 5 inches before cutting it out. So as you can see, I've already folded my fabric twice before cutting it. You can see I folded once and I folded it again. So I folded the fabric twice. So I've gone ahead to cut out our full length measurement plus 4 inches. So this is what you should have as well. The rest you are going to set it aside for the sleeve. Can you see what we have at the moment? So make sure you chalk the wrong side of the fabric. So I'm just checking out the width, if it will be enough for my client's bodice measurements. So that's that. So the next thing you want to do, you want to take the measurements. So I'm going to fold in such a way that the width of the fabric is going to be quarter of the largest measurement, which is the hip circumference measurement, plus 2.5 inches. So I'm just trying to make sure that the measurement I have here, the folding I have here, is quarter of my hip measurements plus 2.5 inches. That's what 1/2 inches is for the side fold that the senator wear used to have, the side fold. So that's that. Make sure you take your measurements and make sure that your fabric is relaxed and smooth. So once I've taken out my measurements, the excess that I don't want, I cut it out. So after cutting this out, you have 2 pieces of this. I'm going to separate them. So I'm going to remove the inner one and fold them separately. So this is what you should have. Make sure you are folding on the right side facing the right side. The wrong side should be up outside, should be facing you. So this is what I have. Repeat the same thing for the other side, for the other parts of the fabric. Next, you're going to work on the front part of the senator wear. Now I'm going to take my full front length, which is 42 inches, and then I'm going to add 1.5 inches to this measurement. You can add 1 or 1.5. So I'm going to work with 1.5 inches. One and a half inches for the front. So once I have that, I'm going to rule a line across this mark and cut the excess out. So that's the front part of the senator wear. So for the back, remember you added 4 inches to it as well. You're going to remove half an inch. So I've gone ahead to remove half an inch from the back part of this pattern. So this is what you should have. The back is longer than the front with 3.5 inches. So the back is going to be 3.5, while the front is going to be the full length measurement plus 1.5 inches. So you are going to align them like this at the top edge. Make sure you align them very well. Make sure they are aligned. Do this because you are making this for a male client and you want everything to relax perfectly well along the shoulder line. So once they are aligned, next, you're going to apply your measurements. At the side seam from the top edge, you mark 4 inches and connect it to the center front like this. You can use 3 inches, but I think I like working with 4 inches because whenever my clients wear my design, it's always relaxed. There's no pocket, there's no gathering along the shoulder line, and that's why I always use 4 inch. You can make use of 3 inch, 2.5 inch. Please work with the measurement that work best for you. The one that work best for me is 4 inches, and I've always worked with it, and it's always come out really nice for me. What you see me doing here is just arranging or rearranging my patterns. So remember that the back is longer than the front. I'm just positioning it in such a way that when I want to mark my measurement, it's going to be easier for me. So the next thing you're going to do, you're going to fold the back over the front, overlapping it by 1/2 inch. Remember, when cutting a menswear or pants or anything that is concerning menswear design, always make sure you iron your fabric first. That's the most important thing. Make sure you give it a nice press, the fabric a nice press after folding to get accurate results. So after you've done ironing the fabric, you're going to overlap it by 1/2 inch. You bring the back to the front and overlap it at the front by 1/2 inch. After that, you're also going to give this a nice press. If you have a tailor clapper, please make sure you make use of it. This clapper at this very moment, because it is one of the most precious things that you need for a menswear design when cutting. So I make sure that I'm using a steam iron. I'm not using steam right now. I'm just making sure that the grease line of the shoulder line is visible. So once you are done, you're going to use clapper to smoothen it to relax the fabric. So that's all. Now after you've done this, the next thing you want to do, you want to apply your shoulder measurements along that line. So now I'm going to apply half of my back shoulder measurement, and you can see where I'm taking the measurement from that sharp point, not the extended part. You can see that when I folded the fabric along that part, it's extended a bit beyond the center front. So I'm going to measure my back shoulder. My back shoulder is 19.5. I'm going to mark half of 19.5 along this line and add 1/2 inch for sewing allowance. So from that mark point, I'm going to mark my armhole measurement, which is 8.5. I use 8.5 for someone that is of a medium size. 8.5, and if the person is slimmer, I use 8 inches, and if the person is of a larger size, I use either 8.5 or 9 inches. Now along that mark line, I'm going to mark quarter of my bust measurement. We don't use bust for men, we use chest measurement, which is 40 inches. So I did not add any ease, I just mark quarter of the 40 inches and I add 1 inch sewing allowance. On the waistline, I repeat the same thing because the person waist and hip, the person chest and waist measurement is the same. So I'm just going to extend this towards the waistline. So on the hip line, the hip measurement is 42 inches. So you're going to mark quarter of 42 inches along this line, the hip line, and add your 1 inches sewing allowance. So now you're going to connect this. Be careful about the curve, you don't have to curve immense way, be careful about that. So from the armhole line, I'm going to measure 17 inches. From the armhole line, I measure down 17 inches, and that is where our slit will start from. So after marking the quarter of your hip measurement, you're going to mark 2.5 inches instead of your sewing allowance, which is 1 inch. You're going to mark 2.5 inches at that point. And this is what your measurements should look like, or your pattern should look like at this point. You can see I'm just trying to cross check all our measurements before cutting it out. So from that 17 inches mark, instead of marking your 1 inches for seam allowance, you're going to mark 2.5 inch for the side fold, and that's that. So the next thing you want to do from this point, you want to draft your armhole. So to draft the armhole, I'm going to be making use of my pattern master. I'm just going to place the pattern master on the shoulder line and towards the first mark point on the side seam or the bust line. You can see from the bust first mark point, from where my quarter of my chest measurement is, that's where I'm going to connect it. So I'm just making sure it's correct. Make sure that your measurement is correct. From that first mark point, I'm just going to connect it into the shoulder line. That's the front armhole. And from the back armhole, you're going to come out to 1/8 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch before connecting it. So the first line that is inside is for the front armhole, the one that came outside is for the back armhole. I'm just going to make sure that my line is visible for you guys to see. After drafting the armhole, the next thing you want to do, you want to cut this out. Make sure you cut directly on the line. Directly on the line. The next thing we are going to do, we are going to work on the neck depth. I'm going to mark 4.5 inches from the top edge, and the width is going to be 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to curve this 2.5 into the neck depth, and watch the way I curve the back neck depth. From that 2.5 inches, I'm just going to curve it into the back of the clothes like this. You can see the way I curve it into it, and then I extend the curve towards the center front of the part. Make sure your curve is close to perfect or perfect. I don't want, just make sure it's curvy, because the neckline of your male senator wear matters a lot. So I make sure you pay attention to the way I cut it. I'm not cutting the front and back together. I'm cutting only the front up to the 2.5 inch, then I'm cutting the back. You can see I've removed the front, and for the back I'm going to cut. You can see the front, I'm going to curve it. See, you can see what I'm doing, curve it. Make sure you don't snip the back off. Be careful at this point. Then you curve it into the back neckline like this, following your grease line. So that's what you will have. As you can see, the back is a bit having an angle like sharp edge. You're going to trim that off. Make sure that place is straight towards the neck depth of the back, and that's that for your senator wear. Please, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumb up, like and share my video, and please don't forget to follow me on all of my social media accounts. Now I'm going to take the measurement. What I have here is 17 inches, and the neck round neck measurement of my customer or my client is 17.5. So what we have here is okay. So that's that. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day. Bye.